Welcome to the PlanningHQ 2026 overview with Colorado Springs School District 11. We have Chris Marks leading our session, along with Paul Fletcher and Tara Salerno from OperationsHERO Client Services, and Jennifer Hotaling from Colorado Springs School District 11.
You're familiar with the projects, the budgets, and the funding sources. And so like these are the three main ones that are in the version that you have access to. So and you kind of just revoicing over the relationship because it'll be important later, but I'm sure you kind of have known how these kind of all work together, that a budget can be made up of multiple funding sources. So you would create those funding sources, and then I could create a budget that has talks to more than one. So it can either be, this one fund, or it can be the grant plus fund combo, or however many funds that you want to add to the budget. And then those budgets get leveled up to a project, and that's really the execution arm of it, is that I have, this project, and if as work request comes in that carry costs, I can, associate those work requests to these projects. I can schedule them potentially out on a timeline, but all of the costs that gets put into these work requests roll up at the project layer, so I can see, the budget that was talking to those funding sources had, 20,000, is that 20? No, yeah, 200,000 um, allocated to it. I've spent $65. I still have lots left. So that's kind of like the product as is to today. And then the kind of new iterations and the new functionality that we're adding really is kind of going more into the planning space, where I want to figure out what I want to plan before they become executing projects, and before I've secured that budget. So you mentioned like a bond that you're going after. So the new tools, and we'll mainly be working within plans, the new tool is going to give you the ability to kind of model what that looks like in a bond scenario. And then maybe if another scenario is that you don't get the bond, so that money doesn't come to fruition, what are the differences between those scenarios look like from what I can do from the projects that are on my backlog of projects.
Got it.
So that's just kind of the hows where we are. So the new features are the plans, and then the backlog here, where this is, I need some starting point. If you do asset tracking within Here HQ, or have your buildings within Here HQ, then you are able to create needs based off of those. So in particular, like these assets. So if you're tracking all of your asset management inside of that software, you can create a need for this asset. Say it's in poor condition, and it actually, this is maybe not a good one, but it's costing you X amount of money. That's a flag that that asset probably needs an improvement. You can do that alongside building locations. So if this building, I'm not sure if this has any data, but if this building was a poor, FCI, when we start talking about your FCI, your FCA data that you have, being able to track it and do something meaningful in our planning tool, you would be able to see your worst performing buildings inside of the new plans, and we'll get to that here in a bit. But these are ways I can create what we call as a need. So probably in line to your capital projects, but the need is like, I need this, not that it's in an execution project, and that's kind of the difference between our terminology. And so from this backlog, I have some that can be created from my existing assets, some to be created from locations, but then I can also import those, buckets of them that you've been working in the spreadsheet world. So you'll be able to take your spreadsheet, import it. Do I have, let's see.
I've got the one
It's
that
it's fine. I got
we
something.
converted.
So I just upload my spreadsheet. If it has multiple sheets on it, then I can choose a particular one. So let's just do the fiscal year 26 here. And then you're going to be choosing how you want to map this spreadsheet to all of the fields that you can take in. So the need itself can have its own template. So you can collect, a lot more information than we have as a default. And actually, it may be helpful to look at this side by side. So let me go to the template. So for instance, this right here. So these are your fields that are on the need template. So when we're trying to import this information into the system to use for planning, it can have, all of these filled values. I can also create a custom scoring. We'll talk more about that and I'll show you the visuals for scoring. Or you can add your own custom fields. So maybe you're tracking some project execution, you can track those fields on the need, or maybe budget codes that aren't really there's not a field to track budget codes, how it relates to another system, whatever custom data fields that you want to capture, you can create along this template. So when we go back to this mapping, what I'm doing is mapping my values that were in the spreadsheet to that need template that you just saw on this side. So all of these names, estimated costs, the work type source, all that information is what I'm mapping here. So this just allows you to get that one time, hopefully one time, to get most of them in, and then you're kind of in the world of planning. So yeah, new ones come in and you can create them on the fly, but this is like a one time, at least we kind of consider it as a one time big import. So you would tag all of these. If you use our column names, then these will automatically be pulled in, but then you can just come in and map whatever remaining ones that you need. And so this continues to matching categories. So each one, if you use our categories from the Hero HQ side, these will auto tag them, or you can just kind of map from whatever tagging you had to it. So category matching, and then also location matching. So what buildings do these belong to? And you can tie those needs to there as well. And
Okay.
so once you walk through all of that, there's these are not the right. So I'm trying to map the wrong locations to the. This isn't really my account that I'm in here. And then you can, if you, oh, because we map status. So let me take back that status. Where was the status? Um, am I blind? Oh, so we were trying to map some weird file or some weird data point to status. I shouldn't have clicked on that one. So, but then you can also go in here. This is review and complete, and then I can mark all of the status to like, is it ready for planning? Does it need a review? And so that's where that status was. So this is like the one time import, got all my stuff into the system. You with me so far?
Yes.
Cool. So this becomes your spreadsheet is in this backlog. And so we have everything ready to go to start actually planning against. And so where everything is going to live for your planning purposes is going to be on this plans tab. So if I click on create a new plan, there's some time ranges that will allow you to just jump right into, like you can do a 5 year, and all it's doing is just setting the time span to be 5 years. You can configure this once you're in there. You can just do a brand new one, but we'll go ahead and click the 5 year one. There's some other terms, 10 year and 20 year, but like I said, this is all configurable, but you can just click on the 5 year for now, and we'll go through a test plan. And so it starts by trying to drive you into creating the first thing that's like your canvas for your planning, and that's scenarios. And the scenarios allow you to look at multiple different variations of a scenario. So I have like scenario A, which maybe has that bond. It may be really being aggressive with what we want to do for a particular location or a particular initiative, like a green initiative or something like that. I can really use the scenarios to explore what it looks like across the same 5 year span, but looking at like, well, what if I did this today, and in the other scenario, I waited, a year to do it. And so that's kind of what scenarios gives you that canvas for. So if we create a new scenario, then we're looking at adding all of those items that we just pulled into our backlog, or as I mentioned, some of the assets or the locations can generate more of those needs based off of the data that we already have readily available. So if I look at it from this standpoint, here's my needs backlog. We had put those all in from our import. I can just simply start adding to this scenario. And because we have the estimated cost for it, it starts building, this scenario is starting to work against this estimated cost. I could do this in bulk, or I can look at it from individual assets. So as I mentioned, when we think about like our poor failing assets or the ones that are costing us the most money, I can drill into either of any of these with these, filters by category, filters by location or condition, and then I can look at this, this 40-ton HVAC here. this doesn't have a lot of cost information. I wonder if there's a better one to choose, but if it did, you would start seeing where my cost ratio is. So meaning over the last 12 months, how much money have I put into it versus how much I have in the system, its replacement value. So in those, when those ratios get really out of whack, we can start seeing like, oh, well, replacing this actually makes a lot of sense because I could spend, $2,000 now and I'd replace it in 3 years and have my payback. So these are the things that are kind of surfaced here by a per asset layer. I can look at my request and I can look at over 18 months, where was my maintenance cost sitting for these? So I guess one big moment on Christmas, this one had some work done.
And that's
Uh,
the hard part for us is that we have these two systems separated.
mhm.
So we're not going to see the maintenance, um, the big maintenance lift in here, and somehow we're going to have to bridge that gap.
Okay. And you can work, I mean, so since you already have the kind of need outlined, like, are you currently, so how are you life cycle looking at it from a spreadsheet standpoint? Do you have like an asset that needs a replacement, like a rule of life is shown on your spreadsheet, or is it more that I'm doing a replacement capital project initiative and it's going to cover these assets, or maybe it's not tied to assets and it just has a bulk estimated cost? Like, what is your planning right now?
So right now we have it by system. So even if you were to look at like um by system and then by like rooftop unit count. So if you were
Hmm.
to look at like Jenkins Middle School, it would say rooftop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 replaced on 2024, due for next replacement. And I think it's a 20-year life um,
Hmm.
expectancy. So it would be
2044.
right. It would be set out 20 years to replace all of them, but we do have them as um, separate systems. Would it help if I pulled that up so you guys could see how we have it?
It makes sense to me. So the way that you can either work within the system or kind of as a hybrid. So it depends. Like you're going to have to do asset tracking for all of those to be incorporate to be the views that I'm showing you, and I can click on, if I filter by roof or whatever, rooftops units, and then I'm only seeing my rooftop units, but I don't have any that are in poor condition. Let's see if that does anything. Nope. So if I if I had roofs as assets, and when I say assets, I mean I'm flipping over to a different section here and having the asset tracking. So this would have all of the assets that you're working on tracking with the replacement like RULs listed for this item. So the life cycle here, when did it go in service? And the expected you said was 20 years for that one item. So 9 years are left because it went into in service in 2015. If you had the assessment done that was like, oh, well, this actually, my observed remaining useful life is 3 years and the assessment date was today, then it changes now to like 29 versus it was originally going to be a much later date. So um, this information, though, needs to be populated on the Here HQ side for it to flow into this planning portion here. So there will need to be some asset tracking inside the system to kind of get you that, or you can just still like not do that asset tracking if you are not going to, and work within the projects and or the needs, if you will, without it being tied to particular assets or locations. I think you lose a little bit of something, but you could still plan against it, and you'll see with the rank and organize where you could still use some of the tool sets.
We don't mind having the asset tracking piece. I think that would be good.
Hmm.
Is that part of what, because we just have planning, is that part of what we already pay for? Would that be additional cost for us to stand that up?
I mean, they have to have Hero on to have planning. So
So,
I mean, where I'm at is put your assets in. Um, yeah, please do that
Okay.
because I don't want you to feel like you're constrained, but I can talk with Nick about what that would look like if you I'd say if you stay within the confines of like a capital planning workflow, that's fine. If we start expanding out and using it for other things like reactive stuff, then I mean that's what we'll talk about expansion of the software. But don't feel like you have to. like just not have hero on. Like you have to have that as a functional piece for this to work. So we're not going to sit here and
Okay.
turn stuff off for you is where I'm going.
Yeah, we have a really pretty good understanding of assets, so that would be beneficial.
Hmm.
Awesome. So, with our scenarios that were to kind of realign us here. So we were working on a scenario, we were working across like adding needs to the scenario. So I could do it via the backlog, or we were looking at assets. The same way I can look at assets, I can also look at locations, which can or can't have assets. So your locations or your assets may be tagged a location. They will if you are importing them. If not, though, I can still look at by buildings, and it rolls up for all of my assets within. So this Greenwood campus, this building here, has 54 assets here across these different categories. So the same way that we're trying to like show signals for your planning to say, well, if you're doing this asset tracking, you're spending this amount of money on these certain items. We want these signals to be able to show you which are the ones you should hone in on as the top priority, either replacements or fixing of some like bigger components of them. So this is looking at this Greenwood campus across these 54 assets, and I can immediately take these air handling units that are all tagged as air handling units. Let's pretend they're all in the worst shape, and I can do a replacement initiative for Greenwood campus. I can just click on this to create a need that is connected to not only those, whatever, 5 or 6 assets, as well as tied to this Greenwood campus. And so I can do a full replacement, and then as we talked about that kind of need template when we were looking at all the fields that we were mapping from an import side into these need templates, am now looking at this here directly. So I can, assign a category. I can put the estimated cost for those 6 units, is going to be $1 million or what have you. And then I can also do some of my custom scoring down here. It's really urgent. And this is just 25 weighted. You can change these weights. These are 25 weighted across these 4 items. I can, adjust this. Or if you did have an FCA and they have their own scoring methodology, you can completely replace this whole section of scoring with your own mapping to, say, that FCA data that you have. So
That's cool.
great to
And we
hear.
do have scoring, so that's awesome.
Great. And the way to do that, so once you'll get access to this new feature sets really soon. The way to do that is here in your continue without saving is here under the scoring tab of this section. So if you wanted to do your own custom score, you just put on a custom score here, and then whenever you import those items, you'll be able to map it directly to that score field. Cool. So,
Neat.
that is adding needs from assets, locations, and then your backlog of items, and then the kind of more of a life cycle view. As I was mentioning, I shouldn't have bailed on this one page. When I was mentioning the remaining useful life section for this life cycle here, all of these fields, these are really what are going to drive the view that I'm going to go into next. So we see that this has, eight remaining years left. Then when I'm on this forecast tab, this is talking to your data and it's saying that of the fiscal year 30, I have one asset. But here you'll see all the groupings between and where that cost is going to show up. So if we think about life cycle of those roofs or that really far outlook, then I'm getting all the way to fiscal year 50 here, and this is where this is showing up for one of my assets. So it's an indicator, like another signal slash indicator to like help you plan. So if you really need to think about carving money out for this kind of fiscal year 34, if a big blip's going to happen or a lot of assets are coming up, not that they really have to be replaced, but it's like recommended, and then you can keep your eye on it to see how you want to plan your funds. So
I like it.
sweet. The let's see, deferred work doesn't really apply to you. So let's go to rank and organize. So we've added a few of the needs here. You'll see these just 4 needs here for simplicity. When I work within these other tabs, this is really kind of just more of the feature sets that I can do within a single scenario. And so if I look at prioritizing, if you did have that custom score field, you can turn that custom score field on. And if these all had scores, let's do a score for this. This will show up on this page. It should. Let's
That's why
see.
I really like the scoring.
So here is that, let's pretend it's imported from your FCA, then this can be, the score value for this one particular project. I can sort and filter by those scores, and then I can also look at it from a different way, a couple of different ways. I can group them by categories, like the way in which they were tagged. I can group them by fiscal year if we have assigned a fiscal year for these. And you can move these amongst fiscal years, and you can also take the estimated cost. So if it's $128,000, I can also spread that cost to, say, for easy math, we'll do 100K there and 20K. So we just start the project in fiscal year 26, and then we're kind of continuing it in fiscal year 27. So all of that can be spread, and there are a couple different ways you can do that, and I'll show you another spot you can do it in more of a spreadsheet view. I can also work within a swim lane board, also grouped by that same fiscal year. So I can say, well, actually, I'm going to move this to 27, and it sums up the total of the kind of items that are in each one of the columns. So you can start seeing how your, each column is represented the estimated cost for those particular years. And
I love
so,
it. Rank file, grab and go.
perfect. Yep, exactly. And then you can also custom categorize these if you wanted to. So maybe, I don't know, like a now, next, later is a simplistic version of that. But these are independent of the fiscal years. But this is just another way for you to slice up the, information as you're kind of planning against this.
Like
And
health
so,
and safety, IAQ, those types of things. Like those are going to be mission critical.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna take a quick pause. I think my family's here. Hold on one second. Sorry.
no problem.
That's good. Thanks, Chris. It's getting us into the flow of what we need to focus on.
Yeah, no
Yeah, I'm
problem.
taking some notes of like if there's just a time, like you said, a flow of what to hit on, and I'm trying to follow where you're going, Chris, so that when we have time to jump into our account and start playing around, then we can really start focusing on the flow of the training.
Yeah. And so sometimes, so speaking of flow, sometimes I do this, and it's been a while since I've talked through the, at least a full demo. Sometimes I go to funds first because it's easier to contextualize that I'm putting a bucket of money in here to think about, and then attaching those needs to that money. So sometimes I do kind of work a little bit, not top to bottom, but more of a money first approach. I just jumped into started talking about needs. So because like you've already added items, there are a lot of things. If you've done the funds first, you can do more when you're adding the items, and you can start attaching it. What is it? What is the fund it's actually talking to, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Asbestos abatement. Good times.
Yeah, it needs to refresh.
It looks like you got good feedback from Benson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see where in this last release there's the asset detail lifecycle section. So it looks like just some cleanup there on the remaining useful life
This
and
section.
service date. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the renovated version, and it really added kind of calculated rule, but it also took the if the client's data has a observed or had an existing RUL. I think it was just called RUL in the previous version. It now becomes an
Mhm.
observed RUL because like this is what you are saying is different than an expected useful life, which is more of the
Mhm.
generic version. And then the new data here is that you need to put an assessment date because that's the anchor to our now observed RUL is that, oh, I would observe that on May 21st, 2026, and now that's 8 years past that date.
Yeah, because all right, so in a perfect world, in ideal scenario and ideal conditions, the expected useful life would be 15 years of like, if we didn't have harsh environments like
Hmm.
really hot and humid or cold and snowy and freezing, you know, um,
Or a limit of a unit, and it's just a poor, poor unit, right?
right. So perfect conditions when it comes out of the factory, it should last 15 years. But what this is saying is actually this thing lasted until um 2018.
No, this is saying that someone just now has said it's going to last another 8 years.
Okay, got it.
So, yeah, if this doesn't exist, let's clear this. So if
Okay,
this doesn't exist, then it's already past its
right, because
like
it's
expected.
2025. Got
But
it.
if I
Okay,
observed that, oh, I just did an assessment. Actually, you guys are good for 2 more years, and I just did that assessment. So the new renewal date is going to be
got it.
2028.
Understood.
So those two
Okay.
are tied together. Assessment date and observed RUL are tied together.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, because I think I understand because that would mean like, okay, well, we are stretching this thing because we've done preventative maintenance, we've done corrective maintenance on it, and with this last assessment done
Hi, sorry.
on May 27th, we've discovered, all right, we can get 2 more years out of this,
That's right.
and then it updates the estimated renewal date. Okay, got it.
The boys are just chatting, Jennifer. No
We're
worries.
trying to
Got
make
it.
sure
No
we
worries.
understand
Mhm.
what the calculations are because we just had some updates. All right, cool.
Sorry that took a hot minute. It's
No
dropping
worries at
them
all.
off, and now we got to get them a snack, right? Like
Oh yeah, of course.
they come hungry. I'm like, why are they coming hungry? But okay.
I have a
Well, keep them
13-year-old.
entertained for three
Understood.
minutes, so you'll be back at it in a few years.
Yeah, it won't last long, but it's okay. Making it
Okay.
work.
Awesome. So for moving down these sort of items, so we've added some needs, we've ranked and organized them. The important thing is like, well, what's funding these items? So this is really where you can model, draft versions of these funds. So as you mentioned, there may be that bond that we're going for in 2027. Um, and we don't know if we're going to get it yet, right? So we're just kind of seeing if we do get it in this scenario. To do that right? Yep. Um, Let me add that here. This means I have in 2026 these funds available. And so you can put in your budget too as a draft. You can put in from an existing fund. So if you've been tracking any of those funds outside in the planning tool as is, so if you have these already active funding sources, you can draw from these as well. So the kind of idea is that the planning tool gives you both pulling from what already is it's in motion, it's already set, as well as drafting brand new ones with that draft functionality. You can also do eligibility rules for based off of like certain thresholds maybe or certain categories. So for instance, if that bond is really, only after a certain Oh, category is not showing up here. If it had like HVAC category or something like that, you would only be able to tie it to HVAC needs or whatever categorization that you have are a potential for eligibility rules. And you can also do maybe like an estimated cost threshold that these have to be bigger projects or something like that. So this gives you kind of the ability to draft out different funds. Let me throw another one in 27. Let's see. And so now, and we may have should have started at this point for funds because all of the needs that we added, we can go and associate those needs to what's actually going to fund that estimated cost. So I can go back here and even though or go back to rank and organize and in this view, I put the estimated cost in these like buckets. If I go to fiscal year between 26, 27, and 28, but these aren't funded from the funds that I just modeled. So I can start saying this $128,000 cost is going to be associated to fund. And so I can choose those two draft funds that I've added in this scenario. And so now of that 1.5 million, that 128,000 is being drawn from that. And so I can go and look at it from a tab that we haven't looked at yet, is this capital timeline, and I can start seeing where those where that money shows up. So this is actually drawing your 128K off of that 1.5. So I told you that there was a spreadsheet view to spread potential costs. I maximized that. The button I clicked over here was this maximize button, but this is really your spreadsheet view, and it's pivoted
Cool.
by a couple different ways. So you can
Yeah.
look at it from category, location, need, or you can look at it from just locations or potentially fiscal years. And I'm going to zoom in again on this. And then you can work across these as if you were kind of looking at like a spreadsheet and saying, well, actually in 20, we're going to do 14K here and 14K here. And that's exactly the same way that we were looking at it from this level, from the actual need itself. And that was as if we were spreading that cost directly on this page as well. So that is the spreadsheet view. And then
Does it
lastly,
all have to add up, or can you have leftover there?
you can, it'll show you. So it will, so if I overdraw 20K, well, it's supposed to. So it will, oh, hold on. Only allocated 28. Sorry.
Looks at the bottom, it looks like it's showing you like there's a red.
Yeah, this is, but even per row, the remaining is not
Oh, gotcha.
$100,000. So that's a
It should say
little,
across.
yep, that's a
Yep.
little issue that I'll take note of and we'll fix that. But yeah, this is actually would be negative. This isn't calculating per row. So it would be,
Got it.
yep. But each row and then the bottom should sum up to that. And then the last thing in a scenario is that I can do my cost modeling for inflation needs. So if I am looking at, a default inflation rate of 3%, I can show that in the scenario. I can customize by year if we know that it's going to be a little bit variable. 27 may increase to 5, but 28 may go back down to 2 or whatever. It's going to be horrible in 29, hopefully not. But these are the ways in which you can like put in some inflation numbers against your estimated cost. And you can even model it differently. I'm going to duplicate this scenario so it duplicates all of the things that we were just working off of in another scenario. And then I can I can remove some of these items, model different assets. I can go back to my inflation and say it's only going to be 3%. So when we had in scenario one, we have like this 4-year split of inflation, and then this one we have just a consistent default rate. And we can also go in and remove that bond. So let's just remove that from here. We're not going to get it in this scenario. So you can see how you can start playing around with not only adding projects to the different scenarios, but I can model different inflation scenarios. I can put funds that I may or may not get. And so it kind of gives you that full playground to like work within different ones. And then you can compare them side by side based off of all of those data that you just put inside of there. So we can look at our summary that has, the top level, looking at how much funds that are in there, or what are the funded versus unfunded projects within that. I can look at particular fiscal years. So if I just wanted to hone in on 26 versus, the 5 year, I can look at a particular year view. I can look at my asset coverage by category. So that would show like if all of my sorry, I meant the condition. Is that on here? Nope. Um, this is supposed to be by condition as well, so you can look at condition coverage, so poor, fair, or excellent. Like, you could see your coverage by maybe I'm looking at all my assets that are my fairs, or it's got really good coverage of all my poor performing ones. Um, this shows the top needs. There's not many in each one, but we did remove a few from there. So this is the showing that this is not captured in this one, but it's planned in this year for that other scenario. You can see your spending. Oh, here's the asset condition coverage. We just don't have condition data there. And then I can look at my spending by fiscal year. I can look at my funds. So we didn't have the go bond in this scenario, but we did in this other one. And then the really nice one for when we think about inflation is this kind of like deferred needs impact over time. So really your inflation over time. And so of your scheduled items, where are you hitting, your inflation at? And because this was unscheduled, it had 10%, I think, was our inflation. So it has a little bit of blip here. But this kind of gives you a quick view as a comparison. I don't think these were scheduled in the other scenario or they would have showed up differently. But this gives you a view of like how your inflation will trend over time if you didn't do that work.
Chris,
And then, Mhm.
on that, the inflation rate, is it just like whole numbers, or can you do like decimals on the on that when you enter it in?
You could do halves. So I don't think we did full granularity, but we did halves to a whole. So 4.5, 6, or etc.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Jennifer, any questions on any of that from the compare side or anything?
No, I like the possibilities that that brings to framing the work and the ability to run the different scenarios. Um, it'd be super helpful if we could load it up right now, but I don't know how fast we can get all that done.
Yeah, understood.
Because we've got bond tranches that we're trying to plan,
hmm
um, which projects and what tranche. And so this would let us move things around because we know what the projects are going to be. We know how much they're going to cost, and we know what the total bond ask is. Um, so I don't know how possible is it to be one of your test subjects, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm happily, as we get off this call, I'll turn on, the features for your account. So everything that you're seeing me do today will then be available in your account. So
Sweet.
happy to enable that right now. So I'm not sure how far you'll be able to spin up with, I guess you're seeing everything. So yeah, you should be able to take it as far as what you see I'm doing today.
Okay.
Um,
And we'll just work to get it all in there.
I think the big thing is because you're going to want to import what you have, right? Not manually
Right.
create it. Okay.
I think the
Well,
one
and
thing
either way would be, I mean, it's the locations have like 4 or 5 projects per location with a cost associated. So it's either way, if we did it manually or not, we could potentially show it and do it. And yeah,
gotcha.
it's
Um,
doable.
The one thing I was going to say with the early access, you've seen me take note of a few last little cleanup things that aren't working exactly as expected here. So you may run across something that either isn't working as expected or you had an issue with something. So if you do, please just reach out to us and let us know, and then I'll add it to our list of things that we're fixing. But I just want to warn you that it's not the full release version quite yet. We're still cleaning up a few little things here and there. So if you find something, like, just let me know.
Okay, I get that.
And then the reports side of it, so I can take that scenario comparison and I can download that directly. And so I have the comparison of what that was. And then I can also go from a report side. I can look at a lot of different ways, like facility master's plans can look like a lot of different sorts, and you can, pivot the information by whatever the projects by location, by categories, whatever fiscal year's budgets. There's all sorts of like ways in which you can just look at the table of data, and so this gives you, like 16, I believe, or so in this executive data package. and they each bin the, data against like whatever it's saying there. So for this one, it's by location. So Lincoln Elementary, and here's the project for the Lincoln Elementary. I can look at, the fiscal year breakdown of what that looks like over 27, 28, 3 years. Or if you're looking at the particular bond, I can look at it from a bond view by fiscal year. And so this would be the bond name and what the projects were for that bond across each one of those fiscal years. So it tries to give you as much flexibility as possible with the views you want to see. And then I can favorite them. As you see, I had these as turned on as favorites. So I can always come back to which ones that I want and just download them all. And so it'll give you that quick access to all of the plan data that you've worked against.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then the kind of full circle to the demo here is that we were kind of choosing between these two scenarios. Let's decide that scenario one with the bond is going to be the one that we're going to choose. So we can go ahead and publish the plan, and it'll ask us which scenario we're publishing. And so what this is doing, it's taking kind of the kind of playground that we were working against, and now this conversion moment is kind of just it's a soft lock. It's not like we're hard locking and things are going to obviously change, but it's like a moment to say, okay, I feel good about this planning. I'm going to publish it. And you have the ability in this to also convert those items into projects. So if I click on publish, and I need to work on the words there, let me take note of that. Publish plus project conversion. So this is going to open up a wizard to walk you through converting those projects. So we took those needs. The needs weren't projects yet in our world. Like we said, these are the quote unquote needs. And now we want to make those executable, where I'm going to flip to this other tab real fast, where we want to put them into this pool of projects that are being tracked by all of the work that's coming into it. So this wizard will walk you through how you want to slice and dice those projects, and you can do, single combined projects where one project's going to wrap everything. You can look at it from each one of those needs were actually big enough that they're individual projects themselves, which kind of sounds like I think what you would have. But then they all become like each one of those needs are going to become their own project, and I can assign them out like I do for my other projects. I can set my start and end. And then the other really important aspect is that we were working against draft funds. So those bonds that we were, or the bond slash the funds that we modeled in those individual scenarios. This step will go from where we were in a scenario, we were drafting it into, I'm going to switch tabs again here, where this will show up here as an active fund in your list. So that moment that we're doing on that other window is to convert those funds into actual active funds that can be drawn on from budgets. So we're combining both the manual creation of both of these items into this wizard. So if I create and assign budgets, then I'm going to get presented with a couple other options that I can say, well, or am I going to do one single budget? Does each project get its own budget that's drawing from these funds? So we'll do per fund, each fund. Uh, that didn't work, I don't think. We'll do a different one. We'll do per project here. So this will be going through. So I'm going to create an access control budget, and I'm going to choose what available funds from the, or sorry, what available amount. This was $28,000 in this fund for this project. So I get to go through and choose what funds are going to be used for this budget. So this just walks you through. We'll do the bond for each one of these. I'll go to the bond for this one as well. And then the last one, we'll use this. So that was what I just did from top to bottom, is just taking each one of these projects and then assigning that fund into a budget that's going to be this upgrade budget, this ADA ramp construction budget, et cetera, et cetera. So if I continue now, I'm going to be ready to create these projects. 4 needs that are now being turned into 4 projects, and 4 of those are getting 4 budgets as well. So if I create this button right here, I don't want to do this because I'm going to try to keep this account clear. Those projects would all 4 show up here. The budgets, all 4 would show up in this window, and then the funding sources were converted on the publish. So that first moment we published, those funding sources would have already been here. I know that's a mouthful. Does that kind of make sense as what that wizard was doing?
I think so.
Okay.
Super glad you're recording this so I can rewatch it. because I
Totally.
can follow those steps if I get stuck.
All right. Anything I missed, Paul, Tara, or any questions, Jennifer, that you kind of had immediately?
No, I think that makes sense.
I think the one thing, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. So you went over the base, where we are today. So we're converting this next from a need to an actual thing we're doing. Something gets, our plan gets approved, and then
Mhm.
we're doing it.
Yes. So what I just went through that wizard,
The wizard, okay.
the full circle to get to the entity in our side that is the trackable, execution arm of our planning tool is projects. So
Uh,
execution happens in projects.
So in the
And
project, so we would take those needs and convert them
and you can wrap it
as
and you can wrap them into one big project, or you can slice and dice it however you want
right.
to,
Okay. Yeah.
depending on the scale of the import that you just did.
And Chris, so that's where on our request list we now have the deferred status, right?
So the deferred is a little bit different. So a deferral, if you are tracking work requests inside of the Here HQ side, you then can defer one of these items. And when I defer it, this is actually kicking it over into planning for as a need, if you will.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
so whenever I go into my scenario and say I want to edit this plan, and I'm looking, this is what we didn't touch on because I know she's not tracking currently
Okay.
work
So you got
requests.
deferred
My
work. Okay.
deferred work, any of those items, any of my requests that I have said, not the timing for this, don't have the money for it, whatever, kick the can. I turn a work request into a need, and then they'll show up here for alongside all the other ones.
Got it. So it's a way for us to go the other direction
Mm-hmm.
and take something that comes in maybe from a faculty member who's
That's right.
asking for something or a principal who's saying like, hey, I need to redo all the carpeting in the lobby and the offices for administration.
That's right.
Okay, got it. That's what I was driving at. Just trying to close that loop. Because we've gotten some questions about why is there a deferred status here? They're like, I've seen that, but what does that mean? So that helps us understand like what that can do. Okay,
Cool.
thank you.
So it sounds like my only homework is giving you access, Jennifer. So that's easy.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
That's
Great.
great. Thank
And
you.
this looks great. Thank you guys for continuing to improve and build it out. That's
Absolutely.
exciting.
Thank you for your patience, because I know how eager you've been to work in this and get it going. That's why I wanted to make sure you had this real good deep dive today and ask your questions and just have us here to entertain those questions and go through anything that you're like, wait, stop, I don't get it, you know. So, and we're going to be doing so. We have had planning HQ sessions every other week with inventory. So what we're doing now is we're moving our inventory session to Mondays. And what we're going to do is we're keeping our planning HQ sessions where they are. And the offset weeks are going to be office hours for planning. So we'll have those 1 hour at two o'clock, I believe, Eastern. And is that what it, or is it 11? I can't remember. I think it's 11. It's 11. Um, so those will be on Tuesdays. And what I'm getting mixed up is we moved inventory to 2 o'clock Eastern on Mondays. So 11 o'clock, 9 o'clock your time, it'll be 1 week, the Planning HQ overview. The next week, Q&A, come with your stuff. Let's look at it together. And whoever attends, we can dive into those things with them. So
Okay.
we'll get that word message out here very soon because we just made that switch.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you for joining us for the Planning HQ overview with Chris Marks, Paul Fletcher, Tara Salerno from OperationsHERO, and Jennifer Hotaling from Colorado Springs School District 11. We will be sending out links to the Zoom sessions that will be going weekly for the PlanningHQ Overview, and then the off weeks, the PlanningHQ office hours. Thank you very much. My name is Paul Fletcher with OperationsHERO. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to call us at 919-948-0842. And you can email us at support@operationshero.com. We're available to serve you from 8 a.m. Eastern to 6 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.